All right, so we're doing things a little bit differently today and for this unit, and so we really want to show you exactly what your note should look like. So right away in your notebook you're going to want to put for learning goal number 1, I can read and write expressions just like we have here, and we are going to focus on a vocabulary word to begin with. And it's a pretty new one, and it is expression. And what you want to just jot down after you have a chance to write down an expression is what it actually means. And an expression is something that does not have equal signs. So please make sure, there we go, trying to squeeze it in there, that you make sure that you have something like that too. Now, if you're sort of wondering still, like, well, okay, what does that actually mean? We are going to show you some examples too, and you can also just add uses numbers and symbols. Okay, so if you need to pause just to make sure you jotted that all down, that's fine. But we're going to just show you what that can actually look like by showing you our handy dandy math book here. And here are some examples to begin with. You can see here that these are all examples of expressions because they use symbols, they use numbers, but they don't have equal signs. So here is an expression, and when we're looking at how we would actually say that, we want to look at the symbol first. So we would look at the symbol and say, okay, yep, we need to add here. We need to add 3 and 5/10 and 6 and 3/10 together. In this case, we would look at the symbol and know that we have to subtract 2 from 10. And when we're subtracting, we have to be careful on how we word that. Adding, it's not a big deal if we mix them up, but subtracting, it can mean something totally different if we flip-flop those around, so you have to be careful there. Our dot can also mean multiplying, so we're multiplying the variable p by 1/2. And then here, looking first at our symbol, we have division, and so we are going to divide 14 by 4.
So if you noticed in our learning goal, it said I can read and write expressions. It doesn't even say anything in there about solving them, which is kind of nice. You don't even have to solve them. For this one, we're just going to practice read and writing it. So for example, and I'm going to kind of pop the book up here too, if we had to write this computation in words, like Mrs. Van Dam just showed you, if you look at right here, I look at my symbol first. So it says subtract. So when I write this down, if I was going to write this in words, so we would make this our example problem. If I was going to write this in words, I would start with the words subtract, and then I need to look back at my problem. So my problem was right here. I am subtracting 2 and 25/100 from 7 and 5/10, not 7 and 5/10 from 2 and 25/100. So when I write that, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to write how I would say it. So subtract 2 and 25/100, and the nice thing is you don't even have to write that whole word out. That's nice. From 7 and 5/10. This time we have the words written out, but we don't have the equation. The expression, not equation, expression. Equation will come next time. So if I was going to look at, if we had divide P by Q, you need to think about what would that look like. So if I'm going to divide P by Q, I'm going to be taking P, divide it by Q. Okay, so those are just a couple of examples of how you would write it, or then how you would write the expression and how we'd write it in words. So there's our example.
Now we have another vocab, or, well, really,
an acronym?
an acronym. That's a good word to use, because these, as you can see, are just all one-step expressions, which is nice and easy. But sometimes you might have to do more than one step, and you might wonder, well, what order do I have to put that in? So we have a lovely acronym for you. Instead of pandas, you're going to want to think of PEMDAS.
Think of a cute little bear with math symbols all over them.
So if we look here, the P is going to stand for parentheses. And remember, if you see this here, you'll want to jot this in your own notes too.
Yep.
And what that means then is you're going to want to solve anything in parentheses first. Then after that, if there's any exponents, you're going to deal with exponents next. So just a reminder from in the past, we've talked about how you have like x to the second power, or we've talked a lot about powers of 10. So it could be 10 to the first power or 10 to the second power and so on. So those are exponents. Then we have multiply for the M. And of course, you're familiar with that now. So it can mean different symbols, though. It can be a dot, it can be X, and so on. Then D, as you might have already guessed, stands for divide. And we typically have either the division sign or a little symbol like that. Then A would be to add. And of course, there we go. And then S is subtract. So it will be very, very important that you remember our little PEMDAS to help us with those multi-steps.
And I'm going to show you why that's important. So I'm just going to jot that little acronym down here so you can see why this matters. So if I have these two equations, and yes, you need to write this down. So pause it if you need to. They've got the same numbers, they've got the same symbols. The only difference is this one has some parentheses. So if I'm looking at my PEMDAS here, and I should have written it one up, sorry guys. So my first one is my parentheses. So over here there are no parentheses, so I'm done. I don't have to worry about that. Then I'm going to look at my E. Do I have any exponents? No. Done. Multiply. That means I have to do the multiplication first. So 11 times 8 is 88. Then divide. Is there a division on there? Nope. So I get to keep going. Add. Okay, so now I get to add my 88 plus 3, which is 91. There's no subtraction, so I'm done. Over here, I've got something that's going to look a little bit differently. So first, P for parentheses, I do have parentheses. So in this case, I have to add 8 plus 3 first. And then the rest of my equation stays the same. Then I look for exponents. No. Multiplying is all that's left. So 11 times 11 is 121. I look at these. You notice how they have very different answers. And that parentheses made all the difference. So it is important to follow the order of operations. If you didn't and you ended up with 91 over here, it would be wrong. So just keep that in mind. Now we're going to go over a couple for you to pause and try. And then you'll get to try some on your own.
So we have our pause area here, and so here I'm going to show you this problem, and pause and write this in words first, and then we'll show you what you should have. Looking here, we're going to notice our parentheses first, and so we have to think about that. When I solve for this, this will be a sum. So I will mention here that we have to subtract the sum of these two numbers. So I'm going to have written down here, subtract the sum of, and I don't have to write out the whole numbers, but I am adding these two together from our first number here, 3 5/10. So that is what you should have come up with for the first example.
Well, then the second one I have to flip over because we're out of room. where we pause and try it. So this time I'm going to write down the words, and then you need to try to come up with the expression. So multiply the sum of r and 3 by 1/10. So pause and try it, read that over, see what you think that means to do, if there's anything that you need to put in there in particular. Okay, so if I start by looking at this, multiply the sum of r and 3. So I'm going to say I have to do that first. I have to add my r plus my 3 first. And I am multiplying that sum by 1/10. Now I could have put my 1/10 on this side of it. It doesn't really matter either way. But that's what you should have come up with. Okay, the very last thing you guys need to do is do a few on your own. Of course, you would be so sad if you didn't get to try any on your own. So we have a whole bunch of these, and I'm going to zoom out so you can see. Not a whole bunch. It's not that many. It's only 4. And your guiding question. Okay, so we have write the computation in words. So we've got them here, and you need to write it in words like we practiced. Write the expression for the words. So we've got the words here. You write the expression. And then our guiding question in words, explain how you would use order of operations to solve the following problem. So you're just telling us how you would solve it using those order of operations.
Think of that acronym.
Yep, and then as always, write an order of operations problem for a classmate to solve. I did an abbreviation down there.
O of O, order of operations. Got it.
All right, so good luck, and we'll check them tomorrow.